Hello, glad you can join us. Here's what's happening. A happy ending to a frantic search for a missing Montreal child.
She was speaking with the police officer. She was alive.
What led police to finding the 3-year-old?
Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it.
Tough words as the U.S. weighs involvement in the Middle East, and anxiety grips Canadians caught in the crossfire.
Our windows shattered, the shockwave hit our house, drywall came down.
Plus,
up to 1 in 3 women may experience a recurrence.
a new therapy giving hope to breast cancer survivors.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
And we begin with a dramatic development in the search for a missing 3-year-old Montreal girl. Claire Bell has been found alive. She disappeared Sunday, and later the family pet was found dead by the side of a highway. The toddler's mother was taken into custody earlier this week and charged with child abandonment. Here's what police had to say about finding Claire.
She was located by a drone of the Ontario Provincial Police, our partners that did join the search today because of a lead that we received that the little girl and the suspect has been observed in Ontario Sunday afternoon.
CTV's Denise Roberts is with us now from Coteau-du-Lac, just southwest of Montreal. Denise, good news for a change. So tell us what else police had to say, and tell us more about how the little girl is doing. That's what I want to know.
Well, I will start off with Claire Bell because we were all waiting to hear news about her today. And it really is the best news possible. And that's because just at around 3 p.m. this afternoon, she was found on the side of the 417 near Castleman, Ontario. That's about an hour away from where I'm standing. Police had such a wide area to locate this girl. And we are now day 4 of the search. And there were very few expectations that she would be found alive. But when police located her today via drone in a field by the side of the 417, she was able to speak to officers. She was seemingly in decent condition. She is now in hospital. They're just taking precautions to make sure that she is okay. But she is alive, and much to the joy of so many here, the searchers, the police officers, the journalists, all of us are just so happy to hear this news, Sandy.
Yeah, you know, I can hear the emotion in your voice, and as a mother, you know, your heart is bursting with happiness that this child has been found. I want to talk also about, you know, video circulating on TikTok that shows a mother and the child, and she was in court today. So where do things stand with her?
Well, that is still to be determined. She did appear in a court today. Her bail hearing has been pushed till Friday at the very least, so she is still in custody. She's facing charges of child abandonment, but we are probably going to see more charges being laid. We do know that she was in a very troubled state of mind leading up to Sunday. She had quit her job at a restaurant group that she had worked at for a long time. She had made a series of troubling TikTok videos, so we know that her state of mind wasn't good, and that's another reason why there were fears about what happened to Claire Bell, who had not been seen since 2 p.m. last Sunday.
Okay, Denise, thank you so much for this update, and good news for a change. Okay. The Middle East conflict now, and another round of overnight airstrikes on day 6 of the military showdown between Israel and Iran. And now Donald Trump appears to be suggesting U.S. intervention, with the Iranians warning, well, that would risk all-out war. CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon is watching events in the U.S. Capitol. And Joy, when asked about striking Iran, the U.S. President said, and I want to quote here, so get it right, may do it, may not do it, but next week is going to be very big. So is there any clarity yet on how that is being interpreted?
You know, Sandy, with this president, you can kind of see the evolution of his thinking. He says his patience is wearing thin. He's repeated calls for Iran to surrender, giving them an ultimatum that Iran can never, ever have a nuclear weapon. Is it too late for a deal? He says no, but even with all his bluster, the signs are there. The U.S. is moving more military assets into the region, including a third aircraft carrier. And Trump even gave a timeline. As you said, next week will be big. But, you know, he's said those things before. Have a listen.
Unconditional surrender. Two very simple words. Very simple. Unconditional surrender. That means I've had it. Okay, I've had it. I give up. No more. Then we go blow up all the all the nuclear stuff that's all over the place there. No, they had bad intentions. You know, for 40 years.
All right, so Joy, does that suggest there's no room for negotiation, diplomacy, done?
Not necessarily. Trump is struggling to be a peacemaker. He insists that nothing is too late if Iran gives up its nuclear program. But Trump has also threatened the supreme leader's life, who doesn't seem to be in the mood to talk, let alone surrender. So here we are. We know that only the U.S. has firepower to take out that underground nuclear enrichment facility. And Trump claims that Iran wanted to come to the White House to negotiate. Now, they deny it. Have a listen.
I said it's very late to be talking. We may meet. It's I don't know. There's a big difference between now and a week ago, right? Big difference.
To bomb Iran or not, it could be the most consequential decision of Trump's presidency, especially since he promised his supporters he wouldn't drag America into another Middle Eastern war. Sandy?
CTV's Joy Malbon in Washington. Now, caught in the conflict, Canadians trying to get out of harm's way. For days, airports across the Middle East were closed and flights to and from the region canceled. CTV's Adrian Gabriel reached out to some folks trying to get out. And Adrian, what are they telling you?
Sandy, for Canadians trying to leave either Israel or Iran, it is a desperate situation this hour. And many have shared their frustration with Canadian government officials who they say have been little help getting them home to safety. As an Israeli policeman surveys this ballistic missile fired by Iran into northern Israel, and a plume of smoke is seen rising east of Tehran, innocent people are caught in the crossfire.
I haven't slept for the last 3-4 days.
This Iranian Canadian has asked that we protect her identity. Late last night, her husband managed to cross a precarious land border into Turkey after being turned away at the Azerbaijan border. Though she still has a brother-in-law who's Canadian, her mother-in-law and other family stuck in Iran. She says help from the Canadian embassy in Ankara has been painfully slow.
So I'm asking the government of Canada, make this process faster. Every hour and minute is essential.
In a war zone, every second running to safety can make a difference. Timothy Payne has learned that firsthand while sprinting into bomb shelters in Tel Aviv.
Here we are just sitting ducks night after night, bombing after bombing.
Payne is one of 15 Canadians who play in the Israel Elite Hockey League. The 29-year-old arrived in Tel Aviv 1 week before the war began. Desperate to get back home to Toronto, he says the Canadian embassy there has been of little assistance.
There's no preparation for this. It's scary. It's scary as all hell. You hear the sirens, you hear the rockets. I'm not here on a political decision, you know. I'm just here to play hockey, and I'm just caught in the midst.
For Canadians in Israel, government officials there have told them not to depend on their help to get out of the country. This while the U.S. State Department is working on evacuation plans for U.S. citizens from Jerusalem. We've reached out to Global Affairs Canada. We're still awaiting a response.
Right.
Sandy.
Adrian Gabriel. Now, a side effect of the conflict, concern that global oil supplies will be compromised. Already, crude oil futures have jumped in price, and diesel fuel appears to be most exposed, something already being felt in Atlantic Canada. We asked CTV's Paul Hollingsworth to check out the situation and get back to us. Hi, Paul.
Sandy, the cost of diesel here is up considerably, and that is bad news for consumers and a painful hike for truck drivers. Diesel has jumped more than 6 cents a litre in Nova Scotia, several days after it climbed 7 cents in New Brunswick. For trucker James Roach, an already pricey cost to do business is now even more expensive.
It's hard enough to put diesel in trucks as it is.
The hike comes after Nova Scotia's Energy Board invoked the interrupter clause, responding to geopolitical issues. Petroleum analyst Patrick DeHaan says the conflict between Israel and Iran has resulted in diesel prices climbing to their highest levels in years.
The troublesome spot has been distillates, which are diesel, heating oil, and things, middle distillates. Inventories of distillates are almost 20% below the 5-year average for this time of year. So when you talk about a conflict in the Middle East and inventories of something are vastly below normal, that's going to have more of an impact on those types of products.
DeHaan says diesel is up across most of Canada, with more increases expected.
Just about up everywhere, more than gasoline, and you'd find that south of the border in the States as well. That is something that we've been predicting. Diesel could go up 10 to 20 cents a liter.
According to the Atlantic Provinces Trucking Association, truck companies usually deploy a fuel surcharge to cover diesel increases.
They've been able to pass this cost along to shippers, who then decide whether they're going to pass that along to the end user or the consumers.
A sudden increase like this is especially tough for independent truck drivers and smaller companies. Here in Nova Scotia, this new diesel price means some of these trucks will now pay an extra $75 to $100 per fill-up. Sandy.
All right, Paul Hollingsworth. Now, on the same day, the Prime Ministers of Canada and India shook hands at the G7, repairing a 2-year diplomatic rift, comes word of a CSIS report that accuses India of being at the forefront of foreign interference. You'll recall that a cooling of relations was triggered by accusations that India was involved in the 2023 killing of a BC Sikh activist. CTV's Abigail Beeman on the thaw and questions over how far diplomacy should go. Abigail.
Sandy, the annual public report from Canada's spy agency highlights India, as well as China, Russia, Iran, and Pakistan, as the main perpetrators of foreign interference. And it comes as some question the decision to invite the Indian Prime Minister to the G7.
It's a great honor to host you at the G7.
The same day as the meeting with Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Canada's spy agency listed India as one of the main perpetrators of foreign interference and espionage against Canada in its newly released annual report. CSIS called links between the government of India and the 2023 murder of Sikh separatist activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar a significant escalation in India's repression efforts against the Khalistan movement and a clear intent to target individuals in North America. It calls on Canada to remain vigilant about continued foreign interference by India in ethnic, religious, and cultural communities, as well as Canada's political system.
As a government, we condemn any interference by foreign actors in Canada. The RCMP, as you're aware, is completing its ongoing investigation, and they will have more to say.
I think it was premature.
This former CSIS intelligence officer says the move yesterday to restore top diplomats in both countries is important, but the timing at the G7 sent mixed signals.
On the one hand, we're taking transnational repression seriously. At the second hand, we're inviting people over, putting them on the red carpet, and making it look as though all's fine and wonderful.
The expectation that India understand the damage they have done here in Canada is really important to moving this relationship forward.
The CSIS report also noted Canadian, American, and British spy agencies agreed that never in our combined histories have we faced national security threats overall of such magnitude simultaneously. Sandy?
Abigail, thank you for this. The details of our next story are frightening. A 16-year-old accused of brandishing a sword at a Brandon, Manitoba high school, intent on hurting as many people as possible. Police intervened, stopped him, but not before one student was seriously injured. Lucky to be alive after being stabbed multiple times. Today, he shared his story with CTV's Alex Carpa.
He's got one. right there.
Chinoso Onuke's body is now covered with cuts.
So we have to move these fingers.
Both of his hands are wrapped in casts. Onuke is now recovering at home after surviving a sword attack at his high school.
The whole thing happened so fast you would think it's a dream. Like, you wouldn't think it's real.
He remembers the student pulling out a sword in the hallway during lunch break and lunging at him.
Gets me in the chest, and then I end up, because he's about to go from like my core, like where my heart is, or like my heart, stomach area, so I just end up grabbing the blade with my hands.
He says he's lucky to be alive.
I was not thinking at all. Like, I'm gonna tell you, like, it was all action, zero thought.
A 16-year-old student is now facing several charges, including attempted murder. There is no word on a motive at this time. Karen Littlewood says school-based violence is rising across Canada.
Student to student, student to teacher, parent to teacher, parent to secretary. You know, everybody is at risk in the schools, and you never know when there's going to be some sort of explosive incident.
A survey done by the Elementary Teachers Federation of Ontario in 2023 found that 77% of its members experienced or witnessed violence against another staff person, an increase from the 70% reported in 2017. Littlewood says more supports are needed.
If supports had been provided, we wouldn't end up with these kind of headlines, and everybody would be safe when they go to school in Canada.
Open chest.
For Onuke, there isn't much he can do except rest. As he recovers, he says he wants to see more security measures put in schools to prevent incidents like this from happening in the future. Alex Carpa, CTV News, Souris, Manitoba.
A W5 investigation is shedding light on how thieves are stealing and then selling cars to unsuspecting dealerships and buyers. Well, it turns out some of the bad guys are actually on the inside, employees of car registration agencies. John Woodward joins me now for part 3 of his series. And John, who are these people on the inside and how is this happening?
Sandy, the cases we looked at involved people who worked for Service Ontario, which is a contracted agency that does a lot of the paperwork of the government. And when they are re-registering cars, it becomes very difficult to tell what is stolen and what isn't stolen because they're changing information within the ministry databases. So we took a look at that deceptive paperwork and we were able to trace it back to something that was actually a fairly violent crime.
This is surveillance video of a driveway east of Toronto in 2021. It's almost 2 a.m. You can see the 5 men climb the stairs of the home. They demand a resident's car keys and fire a gun into the ground. They made off with a $400,000 Bentley in the driveway. The hunt for the thieves led investigators to a company here in Sudbury, Ontario. That business was registering cars, even though an OPP report filed in court said officers concluded this business does not exist.
All right, John, your story is getting a lot of people talking, and I've had friends ask me, well, how do I know I'm buying a legitimate car and not a car that's been stolen?
So there are a lot of things you can do. First is check reports of the vehicle history like Carfax. If there isn't anything odd there, you're probably in good shape, though it is a very good idea to get a second opinion on an inspection. In a case like we've looked at today where Service Ontario employees have changed it, it's very difficult to tell because they could have created the vehicle identification number from thin air, so there would be no history for you to check. And that makes it very difficult to see. That said, again, a physical inspection is your absolute backstop because the vehicle identification number may change on the dashboard, but it's going to be hidden elsewhere throughout the vehicle, and a qualified mechanic or inspector will be able to find it. The thieves don't change them all.
Okay, good advice. Thanks so much, John. Don't go anywhere because we'll be right back. Well, after the success of actor Timothée Chalamet in the role of Bob Dylan, a new trailer out today shows a new take on another rock legend.
I do know who you are. Well, that makes one of us.
Well, that is Jeremy Allen White playing Bruce Springsteen, a pivotal moment in his career as he records the stripped-down album Nebraska. And yes, that is the actor really singing. White is an Emmy Award-winning actor for his work on The Bear. His portrayal of the boss comes out in October. And a remarkable moment to share with you from a London, Ontario hospital where a young girl could hear for the first time.
Yeah.
Now, that little turn of her head was proof that Savannah could hear, something her parents were told would never happen. The breakthrough is a Canadian medical first, a small auditory implant which requires brain surgery. And because of the successful procedure at such a young age, Savannah is expected to develop typical language skills. A happy outcome for that little girl. And we'll be right back with another medical development, so don't go away. A breast cancer diagnosis can be scary. Well, so can any diagnosis of cancer for that matter. So when something comes along that gives us some hope, we like to take a closer look. Health Canada has approved a drug that is promising to reduce the risk of recurrence for many. CTV's Pauline Chan takes a closer look at the implications.
Nicole Macronia-Powell was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer 2 days before she was supposed to go on vacation in Mexico in 2023. She canceled her plans and began a grueling series of treatments.
So I did 8 rounds of chemotherapy, I did 4 rounds of Perjeta, and once I started my second round of chemotherapy, I started what would become 18 rounds of Herceptin. Shortly after finishing chemotherapy, I had surgery to remove 13 lymph nodes on my left side.
Her cancer is gone now, but the fear of cancer returning is always on her mind.
You always think about it. You hear about the rates of reoccurrence, and it's often metastasized at that point.
That's why the approval of ribociclib, also known as Kisqali, is so important.
When added to standard hormone therapy, Kisqali has been shown to significantly lower the chance of breast cancer recurrence in a broad population of patients with hormone receptor positive, HER2 negative, early stage breast cancer.
And Dr. Kaja Jerzak says that's a significant number of early stage breast cancer patients.
For those diagnosed with this type of disease, up to 1 in 3 women may experience a recurrence within 20 years of initial treatment. And unfortunately, often when the cancer comes back, it returns as metastatic disease, which is usually incurable. So it's really important to try to optimize therapies when we're at that curative state.
Provincial coverage for Kisqali is still being worked out, but Dr. Jerzak says a key benefit is that it's effective in a broad range of patients. Nicole finally did manage to vacation in Puerto Vallarta, and she is grateful to know there's now one more option available for patients like her to keep cancer at bay. Pauline Chan, CTV News.
All right, thank you for sharing your time with us this Wednesday. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Omar is here later tonight, but first, your local CTV News is coming up. Be well. Bye for now.